Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another installation of Indie Comic Secrets Exposed. And I am your host, Fatal J. And a great guest. This man here, he don't dabble with Hollywood. This man here don't dabble with comics. And this man here, something very interesting that he's doing. Board games, ladies and gentlemen. So I want y'all to meet my man. My friend, Frank Zanca.
How you doing, Fatal J?
Doing good, brother. Doing good. How's life, man? How everything going?
So far, so good. Just put up my new Kickstarter for just getting followers at this point for Fairy Tales of Terror. Just launched it a few days ago. We're up to 300 followers already in just a few days. So
yes,
yeah,
sir.
I'm excited to see what everybody thinks of it.
Now I'm gonna scratch your brain a little later about that, about your campaign and how you operate, how you promote, how you do all that stuff. But this is what I want to do. I want to know the origins of Frank. I want to know how you got into the world of comic books, how you got into the world of Hollywood. I want you to take us all the way back with some Frank lore and tell us how you got the passion to do all this stuff.
Well, I mean, I've been into comics, since I was very young. Mostly reading Batman, Fantastic Four, some Superman, but I was definitely more into Batman at the time. And, I forgot who was even drawing at that time. I know Dick Giordano was, drawing at some time as well. But definitely like John Byrne for Fantastic Four and stuff to that effect. So that's what really got me into comics. Some Avengers stuff. But yeah, so that's what I started collecting when I was a kid. And, I was also in the hospital for several months because they didn't know what was wrong with me when I was 7. So all my family would bring me comic books to read when I was a kid. So, but yeah, I ended up getting diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. So,
wow.
So yeah, so they told me I wasn't going to be able to walk and run like the other kids. And of course, I never submitted to that. Yeah. But yeah, so reading into superheroes and things to that effect was, kind of a motivating factor for me. So I always loved the imagination. And so then I saw Star Wars in the theater when I was a kid. That and, Flash Gordon and all that stuff. And that really jogged my imagination to the point where I just loved, sci-fi. Sci-fi became my favorite genre. And so I started drawing comics when I was a kid. I did a thing called Food Wars, where all the characters were various food things and they would fight one another. And it was, Star Wars.
Hey, man, that's pretty original. Don't throw that idea away, man. That's pretty original.
So yeah, then I started copying, characters like that and realized I couldn't draw worth a shit. But I always thought that I always loved film and things to that effect. But I knew it was as I grew up, I knew it'd be too expensive to get into that. So I said, well, comics would be cheaper because I could blow up an entire planet and not have to worry about a budget. But then I found out it was harder to get into comics than film at that time, back in the 80s, 90s, early 90s. And that's when the comic industry kind of blew up. Was like in the beginning of 90s with independence because, there was just a slew of new companies that popped up. And that's when Image started and all that stuff. So I ended up getting published by a brand new publisher with my character called Shadow Raven. Okay. And that was the first book I got published. That was in 1995. Wow. And the whole reason they were publishing was because they wanted to make it into a film. So I had an office down at MGM Studios in Orlando at that time when that was supposed to be Hollywood East, which never happened. And but he ended up not putting out any more issues after that. So it was like a one and done for me. And of course the thing, his whole studio never happened. I think he was just living off investor money, which a lot happened back in the day on that. And I was just stuck in the middle of it.
Yeah, because
that's not how I kind of got in.
Yeah. One of my favorite companies, comic book companies, was called CrossGen Comics, and that guy and the guy, the owner, he was like this big billionaire type dude, and that kind of reminded me of that. Where this dude, he just wanted to invest in something, But CrossGen turned out to be pretty good. It was a pretty good
they did some really good stuff back in the day. They did that Robin Hood with a female, with YN and all that stuff. Yep. Yeah, they had some good stuff.
So let me ask you a question though. Now you mentioned Batman. Who is your favorite comic book artist? Who your favorite comic book writer? Who is your favorite comic book character? And the reason why I ask that is because you learn a lot from people when they give you their favorite artist, writer, and comic book character. I learned a lot.
You're gonna laugh at actually my favorite character, because it's nobody's favorite character, and that's Aquaman. This is one of my favorite books. This is like my go-to. Paul Levitz and Jim Aparo and stuff like that. And Jim Aparo is also penciled Batman. So some of Aparo stuff is really, really good. I ended up meeting Paul Levitz too at one of the conventions. He was just buying lunch at the little kiosk thing, and we were talking. But yeah, and then when Abnett was writing him and Jeff Johns redid it in Rebirth, that's some of my favorite stuff right there. They really did a good job because, Peter David, rest his soul kind of thing. I know he just passed away recently. The Hook thing, and really that all didn't do it for me. And that was one of the reasons why they went. And I love Atlanta shit. I love a lot of stuff that has to do with underwater, and that's why when they did Wakanda Forever, I didn't go near it, because they screwed Namor so bad. So
that's why me and you are friends. Now let me jump in real quick. Since you say you're an Aquaman fan, I remember when Aquaman really grabbed my attention, and I want to say Scott Snyder was the writer. I could be wrong. But when they did that Throne of Atlantis run, did you ever read that?
Yeah.
That was a dope run by Snyder. And it kind of grabbed all the Justice League into it. But Aquaman was pissed, man. He was ready to just take out everybody.
Well, that's why I think that he and Mara are they're the royalty of that. Some people say it's Superman and Lois. I think it's Aquaman and Mara. That's really the power couple of the comic universe.
Yeah, because what is Earth? Like what? 70% water? You know what I mean? That's a lot of power, man.
But when I was going through college, the Mike Zeck Punisher was my favorite. Nobody can till to this day, nobody can draw Punisher like Mike Zeck.
Yeah.
And I actually have a signed Zeck Punisher somewhere.
This is a crazy thing I've noticed though about business owners in the comic book world. They always say Punisher is like they second or third, or maybe they first, So that's why I like to talk to people and ask them who their favorite comic book character, because it tells me a lot about what they like, And
then I'm a big Wonder Woman fan too, but nobody's written her, good since Rucka. Ever since Rucka left, it's been crap. What's her face is doing a good job on the Absolute Wonder Woman, because she's diving into the Greek mythology, and I love Greek mythology and stuff like that. And Tom King, I had to jump off that thing. The artwork was great, but damn, he screwed the pooch on that. And I wish that they would move the Wonder Woman artist from that onto Absolute, because Sherman, I can't get into his artwork, man. It doesn't work.
Yeah. And see, that's what I tell people, man. You can, it's like the movies, man. If the art not popping, I just can't punish myself to read it. You know?
Yeah, it's like having bad acting, bad directing in a movie.
It's just like that. It's just like that. Now, let me ask you a question, because you know, me and you met through Thinking Critical. Matter of fact, Wes was the one that suggested me and you connect. Shout out to Wes. Yeah. And when we met, you had a campaign going on, and I know you have a current campaign going on now. But I want to ask you a question. What made you get into the realm of crowdfunding? And did you only stick to Kickstarter, or have you done Indiegogo and Kickstarter?
So I started with Kickstarter when we were doing Star Trek Renegades. I had never done one myself at the time because, you know, I produced Star Trek Renegades. It was directed by Tim Russ that played Tuvok on Voyager. He and I are very, very good friends. In fact, I miss him quite a bit since I left LA. But I wasn't really running that. I was, you know, kind of an offshoot of that because they would raise the money on there. And then that's how I learned about it. And then I said, wow, I saw a lot of people using that to crowdfund comics. And I'm like, oh my God, finally I can, you know, start crowdfunding my own comic. But how my first comic that I actually got produced outside of Shadow Raven in '95 was Destiny Aurora, which is
that looks great.
It's based on my book series. I have a 4-novel series with Destiny Aurora as well. And then what we did was I wanted to get into board games, so I created a board game around Destiny Aurora, and I ended up finding a publisher who was just starting out, and they published my Destiny Aurora board game. And I said, look, I have a comic. Do you guys want to publish that with the game and then kind of give it away? And that's what we did. So they ended up printing my first comic. And then I started crowdfunding after that with issues 2 through 6.
Okay.
Because here's the game.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, it's 10 pounds. It's
okay. Now break it down to everybody out there. What is Destiny Aurora all about?
So it is kind of a mixture between Star Trek and Guardians of the Galaxy.
Wow. Okay.
So the main character's name is Jace Carver, and he was a director of the Secret Service in the future. And his wife is a senator, and she came up to do a speech on Earth, and she was dismantling the military and all this other stuff. And during the speech, he saw like a glint of a gun in the distance, and he called up, you know, the guy who's supposed to be, you know, heading that sector, and there was no response. So he literally ran up on stage to try to block the bullet and or the blast, and it goes basically right through his hand and right through her, and so he couldn't protect his own wife and lost his own hand doing it. So which he gets a robotic hand, but anyway, he goes into the bottle kind of thing where he gets depressed. He loses his job, of course, and his buddy is the head of the space cops, and they're like, look, I know you're in this funk. Let me help you get out of the funk, and you come work for me. I'll give you a ship, which is the ships are the precincts. So it's kind of like Green Lantern, where they have different sectors that they patrol kind of thing. And so he says, look, I'll give you a ship. I'll give you a crew. You go look for your assassin. And at the same time, you know, you work for me, but you got to follow my rules. And that doesn't happen. He's all over the place looking for the assassin. Nobody wants to work for the guy because he's drunk half the time. And so he gets this very eclectic crew that none of the other ships want, because it's all military based and none of these people act military. And but they're good at what their jobs are, but they just don't follow orders very well.
I think you nailed the hero's journey, the beginning of the hero journey, because I love how your character is not perfect in the beginning. You know,
oh, none of my characters are. They start at the bottom of the barrel.
And see, that's how people get to relate. Yeah, that's how people get to relate to that character, because we're not perfect. You know?
Oh my God, yeah, I'm far from it. And he ends up kidnapping, because I have these like space bikers, whatever else, that give him a clue to where it is, and to get stuff out of him, he puts them in the airlock. So he does. He definitely does not follow any kind of rules. And here's the shot of the bolt going through his wife and all that stuff. So
wow, okay, and that art looks good, man. That's not no amateur looking stuff right there. You know?
Oh no, yeah, I got some really good people, and even the design for the ship. The design for the ship was done by the designers from Star Trek. So
wow,
all my ships, and I have huge, little fight scenes going on and stuff like that. So
wow, man, that art looks real good, man. I got to get my copy soon. I got to get my copy. Man, but it's funny. It's funny you were speaking on Star Trek, because I'm a Trekkie. Okay, I like everything Marvel, DC. I love Star Wars, but man, when it comes to Star Trek, man, it's like, this is like the only show that really taught me about life and how to conduct myself as a human being. Because I watched like 2 or 3 weeks ago that episode where Picard, and I forgot the actress name, but she played Jean in the X-Men movies. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Anyways,
her name? Yeah, it'll come to me.
Yeah. Anyways, the 2 alien fascists were getting ready to make peace, and they needed the Starfleet to kind of be the middleman in all this. And one of the ambassadors sent that character, the Jean Grey character, on the ship, and
Famke.
Yes, and she had like her pheromones will make any man fall in love with her. But Picard was so disciplined, and you could tell he was kind of breaking, but he still stayed strong. He had that discipline about himself. And it's just little tidbits like that, little episodes like that, just give you so much to learn about as a human being. You know what I mean? And we don't get that no more in shows, you know?
Picard season 3. That's it. There's no other Star Trek TV recently that has done anything with Star Trek.
And I was shocked too, because with Star Trek, with Picard season 1 and season 2, but with Picard season 3, wow.
New showrunner, that's why. New showrunner.
Okay.
But we used to manage Nichelle Nichols.
So, oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, he signed this for me. So this was my figure for the show I'm pitching right now called Renegades Amanara.
Okay.
And but yeah, so that was the last thing she shot before she passed.
Wow, man, that's awesome. And rest in peace. Let me ask you a question, man. From your journey on being on Kickstarter, man, you got so many cool props and toys, man.
Well, this is the prop from my movie. This is the phaser we used.
Oh man, see, you're not playing around, man. That's quality. I mean, that really looked like something that came out 3,000 years from now. You know, that's pretty cool. But let me ask you a quick question. When it comes to Kickstarter, and I noticed you have a few campaigns under your belt, what have you learned from crowdfunding?
You mean crowdfunding comics or just crowdfunding in general?
Just crowdfunding in general. Or if you want to single it out, you can speak on crowdfunding with comics. But just look at the overview of things. What have you learned from Kickstarter entirely?
Well, obviously, the bigger fan base you start with, the better off you are. Like Eric July, if he didn't have a huge YouTube following, he would never have gotten where he is now.
I believe that.
He started out with a huge following, and that really helped him. But the people that aren't starting out with something big, see, like my Destiny Aurora never did that great, right? Because I think I had a male character as the lead. Unfortunately, the more sexual, the better on Kickstarter right now when it goes to comics. Those are the people raising a lot of money. It's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. And that's why I slowly, because that's not my thing, right? I'm into characters and writing and stuff like that. And I do support other people's Kickstarters, but the stuff that I get in the mail sometimes, I'm like, oh my God, this is bad. And so the covers are great, but the interior art's bad. The writing is subpar beyond belief. And I think that's either detrimental or whatever, but at least they're putting it out, right? Like some comics don't ever come out at all, and that hurts Kickstarter when people aren't putting out what they promised to put out. And that's why I fulfilled everything I've ever done. I have to deal with my new game right now, which has to go to China, and I have to deal with the tariff thing right now. I'm trying to figure out how to deal with all that. The other thing is the printing here in the States. We have to figure out how to get cheaper printing in the States, for sure. We have to figure out how to get some automation or whatever else. But as far as back to the Kickstarter stuff, then there are companies out there that will, charge you an arm and a leg. So I learned how to do Facebook ads by myself. And you kind of have to go in with spending money. You can't go in there with no marketing money because if you don't have a huge fan base, how else are you going to let people know it's out there? Like I have a 7,000 person email list that I hit up, and that's still, you're looking at 5% of 5% with that, 5% open rate, 5% actual click-through rate, and then you got a percentage of that people. Yeah, so
it's a numbers game. Numbers game, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely numbers game. So you have to start out with like $1 million to get to like 10 grand,
Yeah, because when you look at those big YouTubers, what are they like? 500,000 subscribers, 1 million subscribers. So it's like you said, they start off with the audience off bat,
Yeah. Yeah, but if you don't, let's say you're like me and you don't have that, like my YouTube channel has close to 4,000 people, but I'm getting a couple hundred views per video out of that, so it doesn't really, it doesn't equate, it's only a very, very small percentage. So yeah, so you have to start with $1 million to get to a number that's even viable. And to do a comic costs at least $10,000, So like I was doing like this one here, this is probably the one we were talking about originally. This is Lords of LA. This was probably the one I was doing when I was talking to you originally. This was my Vampire Mob in the 1950s. And again, the artwork. And I was doing, 48 pages because I wanted people to, be able to, read a story without waiting, too long. But
and not to cut you off, but man, I'm telling you, when you flip over those pages and I see that quality art, that's the one thing too that I noticed about Kickstarter, Indiegogo. Most of the time, this art is not up to par either. You know what I mean? And then you're gonna make me wait 10,000 years until I get my book. That's not good business.
Yeah. So, well, I do half my book. Half the book is done before I even start the campaign. Like, so instead of doing 48, now I'm doing 30 because I had to scale back because I wasn't making enough money and I'm just continually losing money. The first Lords of LA did like close to 15,000. And then the next one, everybody told me when I launched it that everybody was doing badly. And I think I did like 8,000 on that. So I ended up losing money on that one, which is why I'm not really continuing it unless, something happens. And then I realized that everybody was kind of using IPs that were kind of known. So that's why I decided to go into the fairy tale thing.
But Frank, you're going too fast. Hold on. I want to ask you a quick question. Okay. Now, most people that's listening to this will say, well, Frank, okay, you did 15,000 on your comic, the first campaign. And then people say you did 8,000. Now, even though that is a drop, some people looking in will say 8,000 is still good. I don't have 8,000 in my bank account. So what do you mean by you lost money with the 8,000? Can you break that down for a little bit?
Yeah, it cost me 10,000 to do a comic. So a 48 pages, right? This is without covers. So 48 pages times $215, that's 10,000 without a cover and without marketing, right? So that's why I had to drop back on the number of pages I was doing, because you're paying your penciler at least $100, right? Then you got your inker, it's another $50. And then you got your colorist that I got bumped because my colorist, my inker, I got bumped to 60 because, she was doing work for G.I. Joe and all that stuff. So I couldn't even afford her anymore at this point. But so there's another, let's just say it's 50. I didn't get bumped. And then you got $50 for your colorist. That's 200. And then you have another $15 for your lettering. So you're up to $215 per page. And that's with me getting nothing as a writer, nothing. Right. And then on top of that, I'm going to spend, $3,000 on marketing at least. And then I have all my covers, and it depends on what you spend on your covers. So by the time you're done, you're at, 12 grand or whatever else, that's without printing it.
Yeah.
So that's how I lost money. So that's why I'm scaling back the number of pages.
Got you. Let me ask you a question though. Are you distributing or selling your comics outside of the internet, as far as bookstores, comic book shops? What are you doing? Okay, so you're not doing.
I have one comic shop, which is my local comic book shop, that's selling my books. I have two, actually. I have one back in Titusville because he bought through the thing, so he's selling. So when I go there, I sign for him. And he bought 50 copies. He's down to 20. Just in like a month or whatever else.
Okay.
In fact, my local comic book shop here is telling me that Lords of LA is selling better than anything Dark Horse is putting out.
Wow. Okay.
For his shop.
Yeah.
Right. I don't have any other distribution besides me physically handing copies.
Well, if they sell it like that in the shops, maybe we need to get that bad boy in more shops. You know what I mean?
Well, me and Aaron we're talking about creating kind of a group of, because remember that, Diamond's now going out of business, but before Diamond was going out of business, we were talking because, Diamond wouldn't take anybody that has only one title, right? So there's no aggregator that I know of in comics right now so there's so many, good publishers through through Kickstarter. If everybody got together and then we created one umbrella company, and that, we could sell it. And plus, even Comixology died. Who uses Comixology anymore? So there's not even any of that anymore. And then when you talk about webtoons, it's free, right? You have to give out your stuff for free. So there's no monetization there. So right now, for independent books, there is no distribution.
That's an awesome idea, though, man. I think if everybody quit all this bickering online like they doing, and like you said, come up under one umbrella for all the indie people that are actually producing these books and selling them and bringing them out on time, that'll be a great idea. Because look, that's how Image started. Yeah,
it was all
that would be pretty good.
Author owned. Yeah, and with that aggregator, you'd hold on to your rights. That wouldn't even be an issue, and we would need to be somebody like me that would have to do all the paperwork and, the fulfillment and, all that stuff where everybody would have to ship their books to a local, whoever me or whoever is running it. And then I'd have to ship them out to the distributor. So it would be a little bit of shipping issue because the publisher would have to ship to me, and then I would have to ship, one big box or several big boxes a month. And that's true. Also, you'd have to think about the timing factor. Most of these independents can't like even me. I can't get out my one thing. I work too slow. So you either have to have a mini series already complete before you started, or you'd have to do them maybe quarterly or bi-monthly. At the earliest would be bi-monthly. So, and then on top of that, the distributors don't pay. They pay like 90 days, at least 30 to 90 days in arrears. Yeah. So you'd have to print them on your own before we even got a check to be dispersed. So, yeah.
So, Frank, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a couple of more questions, and then we're going to get into the Hollywood of things. But if you had all the money in the world, how would you change the indie comic book world? How would you change that?
I would do just what I'm saying. I would create an aggregator. I would create a new comiXology for comics that has a paywall. Either that or you buy per book. I would figure out the printing side, how to get the printing down here in the United States so the shipping isn't from China, and especially now with tariffs. So we'd have to figure that part out. And then on top of that, I see this is the mistake that Marvel and DC are doing right now. What are they putting out right now? Right? They're putting out facsimile editions, right? Like I just bought like the first appearance of Galactus and stuff like that from Kirby.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I got those too. I got those Masterworks, those Marvel Masterworks.
How much are they? Well, it's like a regular book, right?
Yeah.
Just facsimile. I don't know. They call it Masterworks now. But
the Masterworks is like you said, like let's just say the first appearance of Black Panther. Okay, they're gonna take all his first appearances. Like from the Jack Kirby days,
individual issues. They're
got you.
Issues that are completely reprinted with the original ads from the 70s in there. And
wow! Oh, okay.
You seen any of those?
I've never heard of those, but I want some.
Yeah. No, they're putting them out monthly. DC and Marvel both. Like again, I just bought the first appearance of of Galactus, but it's a 30-page book. And but they changed the cover because now the price tag on it, instead of being 50 cents or 30 cents or whatever it was, is $5. Now, why are they charging $5 for a reprint of which they have to pay nobody?
And Frank, you know what they could do to make it cheaper? Print it on newspaper print too.
Right, but on top of that, even if their printing is like $1, right? All that other stuff, all that other money is gravy, right?
Yeah.
But it's not costing them $1 to print those anyway. I'm just, increasing the price. But why aren't they just charging $1.50, whatever else, and putting them in Walmart?
That's a good question.
Right? All they have is the printing cost, right?
Yeah.
They just make a deal with Walmart. Walmart's not going to take 50%, right? Like the comic shops do. And they just distribute straight and they go back to the racks, man. Even if they're in plastic now instead.
Yeah.
Where they don't get bent up and all that other stuff and they can get returned. But why aren't they doing that? Why aren't they trying to get new readers by lowering the price? Like, okay, so Spider-Man and Predator, right? Why is this book $5? It's not like they're paying a licensing fee. They own Fox.
They own it, yeah.
At least DC is trying to stick to the $4 range. Yeah. And but Marvel's like, no, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They're pricing themselves out of existence.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's great. It's great.
And so there's no kids reading comics. So instead, what are kids reading? They're reading manga.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. You're exactly right. I took my nephew with me. We was just driving around downtown, and I saw this antique shop had some comics for sale, and it was the dollar bin. And I told my nephew, I said, look through and I'll get you some. And my nephew had no interest in there, you know? And I feel like Marvel has all this money to where they could put it in bookstores, libraries, video game shops, you know, promote this stuff to the younger generation. Because I can be honest with you, man. My son, he's 17. He know I got a love for comics. But throughout his life, I don't see an interest in comics with him. And I blame Marvel and DC. I blame Marvel because you got the biggest cinematic universe ever invented. It's no reason why you shouldn't have had a comic book line where the characters look just like RDJ. The characters look just like Chris Evans. And those are like little mid-stories in between the real movies, the big movies. They totally dropped the ball. And like you, Frank, I don't know why. I don't know why.
Why weren't they selling graphic novels at the movie theaters?
Exactly. You know, they want to do all these popcorn buckets, but you don't want to do comic books. You will make big bank doing that. I just don't understand it. I don't understand it.
You're sitting in the theaters for what? At least 2 months, right? So you create a display in all the AMC theaters for 2 months. You're bringing in new audiences.
Yeah.
Instead, they try to pander to audiences that don't give a shit.
Yeah. It just, I don't get it, man. But that's why in the comics, when we put our brains together, we're going to do some damage, man. We're going to do some good. Now, before we get into the Hollywood stuff, Fairy Tales of Terror. That's a campaign that's running right now on Kickstarter. Tell us what that is all about.
Okay, so I didn't actually launch the campaign yet. I'm just garnering people right now to follow.
Okay.
And if you're going to talk about Kickstarter, that's how I feel the best way to do it is you don't launch until you have a certain amount of people, because that a certain amount of percentage of those people are going to turn over in the first and second day, which is going to give you a good first and second day. And that's if you get funded within those 2-day period. People love to put money into something that's already successful.
Wow. Okay.
So if you make your goal small enough, I call it a gimme goal. And when that happens and then you get over it, then you're unlocking stretch goals, right? And the more free stuff that people get, they feel like they're getting a deal. So that's how I do my Kickstarters is I get a certain amount of followers, then I launch, and then I make my goal small. Like my goal is $3,000, right? And I know that I can do that, in the first day or whatever else. Then I do stretch goals of bookmarks, pins, whatever, right? And then from there, hopefully I get to the level that I really need, because $3,000 doesn't make me even. That probably just pays for marketing, and possibly some of my print. But from there, hopefully I get to that, $10,000 or whatever else that at least breaks me even.
Okay.
But that's how I run my campaign. So with Fairy Tales of Terror, I'm hoping to get to 400 before I launch. So I have another 100 to go. I was at 305 this morning. Let's see where I'm at now. But what it is I wanted to do something that people recognize, but I'm at 308. And so I created this world because I said the fairy tale world, and I wanted to meld it with our world, right? But I wanted to do it in a horrific fashion, right? So I said, well, okay, how can I do this where I can do a 6-issue series and possibly even continue it after? It's like, I think anybody's run for like a story should be no more than 6 issues. And that's what kills me about writers nowadays. It's like, all right, I'm done, man. I'm done. Can we move on to another thing? Like Batman and Robin is a good series right now, but Phil Kennedy Jobs is just taking that and just keep going and going. I'm like, I know nothing about Memento. At this point, I don't care, because he's taken this on for so long.
Yeah.
And I think he did that with Hulk also, or wasn't he writing Hulk too? He did, and Tom Taylor's the worst. He doesn't even care about finishing up the story.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think the story should be, you can write a very decent story within 6 issues. So that's what I'm gearing for here, is between 4 and 6 issues. And so I have the Wizard from Wizard of Oz. He has altered people's brains in the fairy tale world.
Okay.
And he opened portals through books into our world.
Wow. Okay.
Some of the evil magic users were banished here because there's no magic here, right? So they're stuck here, right? And so he sent some people out, kind of like Terminator situation, to turn on magic here, which then would turn on the magic for all the people that were trapped here or banished here, and then they would be able to take over, right? So that's the basic plot.
Man, that's an incredible synopsis, man. I mean, I know you kind of dabble with the Wizard of Oz and fairy tales, but that story, I'm bought, man. Okay, sign me up. That's pretty original. I like that.
So you start out with the main character, who is the owner of this bookstore in New York City, and his name is Orson Allen, and he has no family, no nothing. The bookstore is his family, is his everything, right? And because he grew up pretty much alone, and the worlds and the imagination behind it is how he escapes. So he's the owner of this pretty big bookstore, and then all of a sudden, he has a murder right outside his shop.
Okay.
And they find out that nobody broke in, somebody broke out.
Wow. Okay.
So so we ended up learning about Cinderella, who has been affected by this and has come through. And what I did with her is that she has the glass slippers, so she literally breaks the glass slippers against the wall. She can slit your throat, it'll reform, and she puts it back on her foot.
Okay, wow. Oh man, that's some dark stuff, man.
Yeah, and then I brought Captain Hook in also, so he has this massive hook. So this thing is huge, so he can literally go through like your entire skull with it. Yeah. And I gave, instead of having Tinkerbell, he has a fire fairy with him.
Okay.
So each one of them is going around New York trying to find these things, these artifacts, to be able to turn the magic on. And meanwhile, now I introduced Tiger Lily, and she's now partnered with Orson to now track them down and to stop them. And that's the basic story. Yeah.
Man, that sounds good, man. Y'all make sure to back that book. Join the email list for it. And of course, I had the graphics up showing the comic book, the email list.
Joe does such a great job on the artwork. He's the one that did the artwork for Destiny.
Okay, I was right about to ask you. If it's the same guy that do Destiny, then I'm rocking with it, because that's some incredible art, man. That's top tier art. Now,
and the pencils.
Okay, let me ask you something, Frank. Now you dabbled in the Hollywood game. Matter of fact, you in the Hollywood world as a producer. A lot of creators, they say their end game is to turn their comic into a movie, turn their comic book into an animation. Now, since you in the Hollywood world, is that easy or is that a tough thing to do?
No, it's impossible.
Okay.
So okay. I only moved to, I'm in Atlanta now, to take advantage of, the rebate system that's here. which is why Marvel and DC were here, or Marvel and and Disney were all here up to just a year and a half ago. They moved to London now. So I was in LA for 18 years. So I decided I just picked up and moved because I was one of those people that said, okay, I'm going to be there for 5 minutes and I'm going to get my movie made. Yeah, okay. It doesn't happen that way.
Yes, sir.
So let me tell you the true thing about this. So first of all, I'm a producer. I'm mostly a working line producer. And what a line producer is I run the set, I crew the things, I create the budgets, everything that's to do with the paperwork. I describe it as I do already know nobody else wants to do. But a lot of times for independents, I start at line producer and then they kind of bump me because I've had so much experience. So let me tell you a story about Destiny Aurora. So this is what's going to happen when somebody tries to pitch someone. First of all, even trying to get a pitch is impossible because you have to have an agent. And to have a writing agent, you have to have an actor can get an agent pretty easily, right? Because the more people that an agency has, the better. But for writers, it's a totally different thing. So for a writer, you can't just call an agency and say, hey, I want you to pick me up, right? And you can't pitch without having an agent. If you just try to cold call, they'll hang up on you 100% of the time. So you have to have a referral from somebody else in that agency that refers you in. So I've had little agents in the past, little boutique. They don't do anything for you anyway. So they tell you, oh, you make your own phone calls and then, you just send them out a package and just put my name on it. It's crazy. But anyway, I ended up having, so Destiny Aurora, the board game was getting made. The first book was out. The second book was just about finished. And the comic was out, right? I think at least the second issue at the time. So this is how much I had done, right? And I even have my little plushie. I even have a plushie done.
I like that,
man. So I have a lot of stuff with it. So I ended up meeting with Len Weissman's group. And if you don't know who Len Weissman is, you should at this point because he just directed Ballerina. But so at the time, he had directed Underworld, and he was married to Kate Beckinsale, which then he'd been divorced. But then he did the remake of Total Recall, and he did like Die Hard 4 or whatever else, the one with the F-14. And then on top of that, he did the Lucifer series, right? So he's pretty big. And again, I haven't even seen him forever. I saw his name in the Ballerina movie. I was like, oh, cool. But I went to his office, man. This thing was amazing. If you're like a geek, it was just like you could just geek out on this thing. So he had a full-size werewolf from Underworld just sitting in the corner. He had the full-size robot from Total Recall, which I thought was cool. And then he had the F-14 from Die Hard hanging from the ceiling.
Wow.
It was just an amazing office. Then, of course, he had posters of Lucifer and all this stuff all over the place. But anyway, so I met with he wasn't there at that time, but I met with his group. And they said, I showed him everything. I brought all my stuff over. And they said, oh, yeah, we love this. This is great. Let's set up a call with Len. So I said, great. So 2 weeks later, I had a call with Len and his group. And I pitched him. And of course, look at the amount of stuff I had out, right? And on top of that, I was an award-winning screenwriter on top of everything else and a line producer, right? And he said to me, this is all great. The problem is you. And he didn't mean it harshly. What he meant was that I wasn't famous.
Okay, wow.
So he says, if I take your project to Universal and I ask for $100 million, because at the time he told me, he said, I don't do anything under $100 million, which was the problem with Ballerina, because Ballerina was 90. If he had done it for 30, it would have made money. But he doesn't do anything less than 100 million. So, okay. So they're any less than 100 million. So he said, I can't take this to Universal for $100 million when nobody knows your project, nobody knows you. It's going to be a no. And that's just that.
Let me stop you right there. Let me stop you because you cooking right now. Is that the reason why we get so many reboots in Hollywood? Because it's a sure thing? That makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
but carry on, my friend.
The only reason F1 got made at $300 million was because of Jerry Bruckheimer. Right? So you got a name there.
Yeah. So, it makes sense.
And you had Brad Pitt, so that's the only reason that thing got made.
That makes sense.
But for the most part, yeah, they don't want to take a risk on anything. Nothing. So, yeah. So if you're trying to get your comic made, you better have 1 million followers. That's the only way it's going to happen. That's why they're doing video games now, because of the following. I mean, even that little horror movie, Until Dawn, that little thing got made. And I think they did it for like 10 mil or something like that. So it made money. But yeah, that's all you're seeing is sequels and stuff like that, which is a big problem. But at the same time, the strikes screwed everything. I mean, everything. The industry is in the dirt because of the unions. The unions got too greedy. If they had only fought over AI, it would have been fine. But they fought over money. When all the streaming services were losing billions of dollars, they wanted more money.
Wow.
That's insane. Disney Plus loses $3 billion a quarter.
Wow.
That's why they're producing less and less and less.
Yeah.
And that's why they moved overseas. That's the problem, is that nobody wants to deal with the unions. So they all fled. They all left the country.
Wow.
So they have their main office here, but the only crew they're putting to work are all in Europe.
Wow.
So people like me, I came to Atlanta because there is no shooting in LA anymore. Well, not with a camera anyway, but there's they don't shoot film in LA anymore. My producing partner is an Emmy Award winner. He's not even working. There's just nothing going on.
See, I knew those strikes was a big deal, but I didn't know it was on that scale, that big of a scale that you just painted. So is the effects from those strikes? Are we going to see that later on in Hollywood? Like seeing the ramifications of that later on?
Well, you're already seeing it, because if you go to the movie theaters nowadays, you're seeing more and more independent film in the theaters than ever before. Yeah. Now, why is that? That's because Hollywood is producing less. So it's leaving these doors open for the theaters to have to fill up screens.
Wow. Hey, man, I'm glad you...
Who would have thought that Terrifier 3 would have made $100 million?
Yeah. Let me segue a little bit, man. I got to get you back on the show. I got to get you back because you full of a lot of knowledge that a lot of people need to hear. But I'm a segue because we get close to the end. But this is what I very interested in that you told me about a week ago. These board games. Now, I was thinking only companies like that made Monopoly, made Checkers, who made Connect 4. I didn't think it was possible, and I didn't think it was people out there indie-wise making games like this, board games. So what was your motivation? Yeah. What's your motivation with these board games? Where did that come from?
So this is a great story. So I had never played anything else besides the game companies that they make, like Clue and stuff like that. Milton Bradley. Those are the only games Hasbro. Those are the only games I ever played, right? I didn't know anything else existed. One day I went home from LA to my brother's, and his boss had bought him a board game as like a bonus. and it was called Last Night on Earth, and I'll never forget this. So my brother's like, oh, he's not very technical. So he's like, this rule book is like 30 pages long, man. Just read it. And I was reading it, in the car, wherever we were going or whatever. And I read this thing, and I'm like, oh my God, this is really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And then when I got home, I bought the game, and then I'm buying everything that other publisher put out. And I was like, you know what? I can do this.
Yeah.
And so that's why I ended up taking the Destiny Aurora thing. And I say, I want to make a game that I've always wanted to play, right? And because nobody had ever made like a Star Trek type game where you have two boards. One's in space and one's on the planet. So you have a crew, you have a ship, your ship can land, your ship can take people off. They do a mission on a thing. You can still run out into space. You can still fight. And then I said, well, I want to limit what your ship can do if your crew's not on it, right? So if your navigator's in there, but your weapons person's on the ground, right? Now you got to put somebody else in weapons. Then maybe you put your doctor in weapons. So now you're missing everything because your doctor can't shoot for crap,
Yeah.
So that's all what I created with this game. And then I went out and I pitched it, and I ended up getting lucky. But we put that up on Kickstarter, and Kickstarter is a huge place for board games. It's huge.
It is huge. You're exactly right, because when you was telling me about this, me and you text, and I just did simple YouTube search, then I did Kickstarter search. These board games are a big deal. Now I'm thinking just regular old people out there would just want to play the usuals, your Monopolies, your Connect Fours, your Battleships, but people want to play these indie board games. I didn't know it was an audience for it.
Look at the game I got set up right there.
Wow.
That's called Cyclades.
Okay.
It's a great game.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't have a group here, so I play solo a lot. But it's all about the strategy and things to that effect. But yeah, so when I released Destiny Aurora, we ended up doing $100,000.
Wow. Okay.
I could have done double that, because I had that's one thing about that's different between comics and board games is that people cancel. A lot of people cancel. You're looking at about a 20% cancellation rate. So I ended up going against, unfortunately, several very, very big games. And one of these was called Monster, Kingdom Death Monster. And they ended up raising $12 million.
Wow. That's a record, right? Is that a record? 12 million?
Kickstarter?
Yeah. No, I'm just saying I'm just saying just for strictly board games. Is that not a record for Kickstarter?
Strictly board games? It's close. Yeah, I think it is a record probably for board games.
Okay.
Brandon Sanderson's books, when COVID happened, he ended up raising close to $50 million.
Wow. So and see, you got me really interested in this world, because I'm trying to figure out ways of turning off this computer sometimes, turning off that TV, and just really stimulate my mind by playing games, board games,
Yeah.
Let me blow you up.
This is my there's definitely solo games out there too. But this is my new game that I did. The artwork should look familiar to you if you're a fan of comics, because this is done by Mark Spears, and he does cover art for everybody right now. Everybody. Yeah. In fact, he's got his own.
That boss art looks incredible. That's incredible, man.
Yeah. So this is basically a card game. Although I did create little figures for them, like this is Dracula.
Okay.
But these are like print. You can print them yourself.
Frank, let me ask you something real quick. Didn't mean to cut you off, but let me ask you something. Let's just say I'm a guy with zero money. But I want to make a board game. How much capital? Just give me an estimation. Don't give me the exact. Just give me an estimation of what I would need to make a fantastic board game to where everybody is going to want to help fund that on Kickstarter.
Do you have the artwork already? That's the question.
Okay, let me pretend I got all the artwork done, but I have no money.
Because the artwork is the most expensive thing.
Okay.
Like this, I also did like this Destiny Aurora RPG. I ended up raising like $25,000 for this. And I did have to do additional artwork for this, but most of the stuff I took from the board game. But I did have to spend probably another $10,000 in art.
Now, when you say the RPG, is that a rule book? A rule book? RULE. Okay, because I looked at your campaigns and I noticed you have the rule book with it too, and your rule books look great, man, with the art and stuff inside of it. It looks good, man. It looks good.
So going back to your question, if you have the art already, let's say you're doing a straight card game, right? Then you have no other punch boards, no nothing. You still have to create the box. So you still need a graphic designer that's going to cost you probably $1,000 to $1,500. Then and then he has to design the card to put the artwork in. Like I'm getting all my files ready for Mythlords right now, and they wanted like $1,500 just to do one set of card setup. So I said, just create me a template. I'll do it myself.
Okay.
And they created me a template. I just spent like the whole last week just putting artwork in it and changing the text, because then you have to design the mechanics. How's this going to work? And then you have to play test the hell out of it. Then you have to create the rule book, right? And then you probably need a graphic designer for that too. And you got to get a graphic designer for the box. So your graphic designer all in is probably $3,000 by itself, just to make it look pretty professional.
Yeah. Okay.
Then when you launch it up on Kickstarter, you can't do it for free, because people will not put money into something where it hasn't been reviewed. So now you have to create review copies, right? And even this little box of mine was $100, just every review copy. Then I hired somebody on top of that to get me to reviewers, and then the reviewers charge.
Yeah.
So I probably dumped another $1,000, if not more, just getting into review videos.
Well, let me ask you this, okay? So it sounds like you gotta have money in the bank to really pursue this business right here.
You can't do it for free. It's just not possible. You got to create a game is probably going to cost you at least $6,000-$7,000.
But let me ask you something. Since the capital have to be so high for this, is it competition in the board game, the indie board game world? It is.
Oh yeah, it's huge.
Okay.
Like Mythlords only did 30,000, and I had to run it twice.
30,000 is an accomplishment. But you did you lose money with that 30,000, or did you make money?
Well, I don't think so. It's close.
Okay. But that's a win. That's a win.
It's a win, but it didn't raise what I wanted it to raise, especially not when Mark Spears runs his own campaigns and they do 50,000 a piece.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm confused. But everybody told me that the Classic Monsters doesn't sell internationally. So I think that's the problem. And then we also did like a Dark Wizard of Oz expansion as well.
Well, that makes sense. It wouldn't internationally. To me, it would. You know. Let me ask you something. Go ahead.
Going into and doing something more mythological, like Greek mythology. So instead of having my commanders, I'd have gods, and then you'd be able to combine them. I'm also doing I'm talking to people right now, to publishers, to help me, because the other problem is I have to order 1,000 minimum. Right?
I remember you told me that. Yeah.
Where am I going to put these things? Right? I only sold a few hundred copies, right?
Yeah.
Where's the rest? Where's the other $600 going to go? Now I have to have a storage unit.
Well, I'll try my best to help you sell them, man. You know, I'll try my best. All right, man.
Mythlords is up on GameFound right now.
Okay. Okay, and like I said, I have it up for everybody to see. This is my last question. Yep. Man, and I want to thank you so much for coming to the show. Man, I don't know if you know it, but just me listening to you have accomplished a lot, brother. You should be proud of what you accomplished, man. I wish I could.
Money, but I sure have accomplished a lot.
But man, just money aside, man, board games, rule books, comic books, Hollywood, man. People pray to have just one of those things, you know? So, man, you're doing a good job. But this is my question. Your company, looking at everything, board games, comic books, producing Hollywood, where do you see your company at in a few years? What is your end goal?
Right now, I'm really pushing to do a vertical company. Did I lose you? Fatal J?
No, I still hear you. You're a little choppy, but keep going.
Okay, I want to do a vertical company. And I have a business plan that I'm sending out right now to investors. And if you're not familiar with verticals, it is the future of television because kids don't watch television anymore.
That's right.
They only watch this.
This they do. My son, that's all he does. Yeah.
Right. So the size of this is vertical as opposed to horizontal.
Wow.
So if you shoot film with the camera sideways.
Yeah.
So there are vertical companies out there right now that are getting 200 million views for their films. Wow. More than anything that Hollywood is getting right now. And the company I just worked for we did a feature called the company's called Real Shorts. And they're only directed towards women right now. So the only thing that you can watch for Real Shorts are all like Harlequin romance, Hallmark shit. That's it.
Wow.
There's nothing for men. But again, they're getting 200 million views. And that company only started a few years ago. And it went from, in late 2023, went from 35 million in gross revenue to 214 million in a little over a year.
Wow.
So that tells you this is the future of television.
It's the future.
So I am trying to do stuff for men. So I want to do action and horror, and I'm calling it Real Fear with RE.
Okay.
And that's what I'm going to raise money for right now. And, doing a couple of features a month to increase the database, to do an app. So and what happens is those features are divided up into 2-minute episodes.
Okay.
So you're going to have a feature that you watch over a period of an hour and a half, but anytime you want to stop, they're all in little bite-sized bits. So because everybody's attention span is, doesn't exist anymore.
It don't exist anymore. Man, I'm telling you, I work around kids. I got a son. If it don't get them in the first 30 seconds, they not watching it at all. 30 seconds, that's it. And I'm being generous when I say 30 seconds.
Yeah, so that's my goal right now is to get funding for that.
Brother Frank, man, I want to thank you for coming to the show, man. You dropped some serious bombs, some serious secrets, because this is what this show is all about, letting people know what goes on behind the geek world, comic book world, nerd world. I want to thank you so much. Where can people find you if they want to contact you?
Well, I have my own YouTube channel that you can also hit me through. You just have to type my name in it or Destiny Horizons, which is the name of my company. And then I'm also, all my books are also on Amazon. You can also hit me up through Facebook. I'm also on Facebook. You just DM me through Facebook. I respond to that all the time as well. And if you're into board games too, there's a big convention coming up at the end of the month called Gen Con. And in Indiana, if you've never been to one, that is an amazing experience. And then I'm going to be at Atlanta Comic-Con at the end of the month as well. I have a booth over there as well.
Frank, thank you so much, man. And I'm definitely going to have you back on the show. That's Indie Comic Secrets Exposed with Fatal J. We're out of here.
And we living it up.